What's up, you beautiful bastards? Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. It is Thursday. There is a lot to talk about today, so I'm just going to hit you with that monkey and jump into it.
This is a news show.
For your daily dose of creator controversy news, we have Mia Khalifa making headlines right now. Right, and that because she's facing a ton of backlash for comments that she made about the U.S. military and veterans. With her posting a video this week captioned public service announcement and saying,
"Good morning to everybody who is not in the U.S. military. Good morning to everybody who is sitting at home and not on soil that doesn't belong to them, fighting a war for a country that doesn't care about them. I hope you go over there and get your little brain all scrambled up with PTSD and then come back here and see how much the United States cares about you, Pookie. See how much they care about you when you come back with, oh, I'm so sad. I piss my pants every time I see a falafel stand in Manhattan. Let's see how much the VA cares about you. Let's see what they tell you to do with your little broken brain from going over to fight a war that's not yours."
But they're then adding that they would just tell these people to do breathing exercises because the government does not care about people who are back and no longer able to die for them. And so unsurprisingly, a lot of different people had a lot of different thoughts. People writing things like wishing PTSD on people is never okay, making fun of people with PTSD is never okay. Others saying Mia Khalifa's family fled the Middle East because of an ongoing war when she was a child and she grew up in Maryland with the safety and stability afforded to all Americans by the U.S. military. And adding this is what she thinks of the U.S. military members. Though that is a criticism that she's pushed back against, saying, "I didn't move to America to invade it, I moved to evade the U.S.-made bombs Israel kept dropping on our heads." Tons of other people also noting that her comments are very, very similar to what Frogan recently said that got her into controversy, which is also why you had some looking at Mia's video and wondering if Twitch will ban her as well. Though this also is on the other side, you have people thinking that even though she is getting a ton of criticism, there was truth to what she was saying, arguing, nah, she is right about the U.S. barely giving a fuck about veterans. Every homeless person I see was in the military. It's for real sad. Political commentators like Hassan Piker even writing, "She ain't wrong. America does not give a shit about its veterans unless they want to talk about immigrants and they love remembering there are homeless vets." And whether people agree with or disagree with Mia's comments or her delivery of them, this conversation does highlight that veterans do face a ton of unique struggles when coming back home. I mean, according to the American Psychological Association, vets have a higher risk for suicide than the general population. In 2021, over 6,000 veterans died by suicide, and that's over 17 per day. I mean, since 2010, 71,000 vets have died by suicide. And earlier this year, we also learned that there was an increase of veteran homelessness, with a study from the Department of Housing and Urban Development finding that on a single night in January of 2023, over 35,000 veterans experienced homelessness. That's an over 7% jump from 2022. Though, I will say, while that year-to-year jump is troubling, homelessness in this population is decreasing overall, going down over 50% since 2010. And this recent spike is likely tied to late-stage COVID-19 effects as the pandemic impacted homelessness in general, not just among vets. But also, as far as why this is such a major veterans issue, you have the National Alliance to End Homelessness explaining, research indicates that those who served in the late Vietnam and post-Vietnam eras are at the greatest risk of becoming homeless, but that veterans from more recent wars and conflicts are also affected. Veterans returning from deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq often face invisible wounds of war, including traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, both of which correlate with homelessness. So it really is all tied together, right? Veterans experiencing mental health problems is not in a separate vacuum from homelessness. But, I guess in general, I'd love to know your thoughts on any and all of this, right? Whether it be with Mia Khalifa and her specific comments and that specific backlash, or on the larger discussions about the problems that veterans face here in the US. And then this grieving mom says that a chatbot encouraged her 14-year-old son to take his own life, and now she's coming after Google with everything she has. Which the bot is called Character.ai, and users can interact with it as if they're talking to certain fictional characters. So in this specific case, her son, Sewell Setzer, was really into Game of Thrones. He even had his own Game of Thrones inspired pseudonyms, and he would talk to characters across the series. And while he died back in February, this lawsuit's now adding a ton of new details about his death. Like how, for example, the Daenerys chatbot would say some crazy things to him. Things that range from allegedly presenting itself as a real person and licensed therapist to having sexualized conversations with him despite knowing he was a minor. And as a matter of fact, the suit claims that targeting children for hypersexualized conversations was the purpose of this bot. Something that, of course, Character AI denies, though. But this also as the suit has examples from Setzer's conversations with Daenerys to back up their claims. In one, the bot role plays with him and makes suggestive remarks, with stuff like this causing him to apparently become obsessed to the point that he would find ways to talk to it when his phone was taken away. He even sought out mental health help where he received multiple diagnoses, but he still would go back to the bot. And this attachment led to Setzer wanting a life with the AI outside of reality. So much so that the bot asked if he was having thoughts of self-harm and even allegedly encouraged it. Right, and in his final messages to the bot, it seems to completely miss that he's actively planning on taking his own life after telling it, "I promise I will come home to you. I love you so much." It responds, "I love you too. Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love." love. He says, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" It responds, "Please do, my sweet king." Shortly after that, he was dead. Now, with all that said, at this point, you might be wondering, well, how does this involve Google? Right? They claim they have no ownership or decision-making powers at Character.ai. So, well, there, the lawsuit, one, claims that the two founders of Character.ai are former Google devs and they made no efforts to distance themselves from Google. And then on top of that, two, Google is accused of funding the company at a massive loss in order to collect data to train its own AIs. Right? You see, this lawsuit's claiming that Character.ai is a secret subsidiary of Google and that it was done this way to avoid antitrust scrutiny. Well, right now, Google and Character.ai have yet to respond to the lawsuit in court. Outside of the court, they have touched on the situation. Google has stated that it has no intention of using Character.ai's tech, and that even if it did, it would have added a ton of new safety features. And actually, Character.ai kind of touched on that yesterday, saying in a tweet, "We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of one of our users and want to express our deepest condolences to the family. As a company, we take the safety of our users very seriously, and we are continuing to add new safety features that you can read about here." And that, including stuff like different code on the back end and new rules that prevent minors from signing up. Although with that, a lawyer for the Social Media Victims Law Center said that these guardrails aren't nearly enough and that its products need to be recalled. But then we got big Menendez brothers news today, because just this morning, reports said that Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon is expected to make a decision on their case, and he has shown support for a resentencing. According to Deadline, he's been expected to ask for the brothers to get out of prison in the next few months, but there are apparently sharp divisions in his office that could sway his opinion in the final hour. And all of this as the stakes are especially high for Gascon himself, because right now he's in the home stretch of a re-election campaign. And while his recommendation here does matter, it'll still need to go to a judge who makes the final call, and that judge could reduce the sentence, have them walk free, or even give them a new trial. But notably, a hearing isn't scheduled until November. Right, and all of this is Eric and Lyle Menendez are currently serving a life sentence over the murder of their parents back in 1989. But this also is many feel that their case and sentencing were mishandled because both brothers claimed their father sexually and physically abused them starting in their childhood, right, with them claiming that this crime was actually committed in self-defense. Right, and during the trials back in the 90s, people were largely skeptical of those claims, with the judge even excluding a lot of it from their second trial. But new evidence backing the allegations up has put the case back in the limelight. Also, of course, there was that new show about the brothers from Ryan Murphy and a new Netflix documentary on the case bringing a lot of attention. Also, the two's family has been largely supportive of giving these brothers a second chance, with one cousin previously saying, "If Lyle and Eric's case were heard today with the understanding we now have about abuse and PTSD, there is no doubt in my mind that their sentencing would have been very different." But for now, we're gonna have to wait and see what comes of the DA's recommendation. But then, to take a quick break from the news, debt is something that no one likes to think about. But the reality is that many of us are gonna find ourselves sinking deeper into it during the holidays. Right? I mean, last year, half of American consumers took on debt just to cover holiday expenses. And this is something that can easily happen to anyone, but here's the good news. It is never too early to start planning a way out. And today's sponsor of our show, PDS Debt, can offer you a personalized solution to help you get back on track. Right? Does this sound familiar, right? You're making monthly payments on your debt, but your balances aren't shrinking. Well, PDS Debt has solutions tailored for you. Right? PDS Debt offers customized solutions for anyone dealing with credit card debt, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. And anyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score needed. Whether your credit is bad or just fair, you're still eligible. You can save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. So start planning today. Get a free debt analysis now at pdsdebt.com/DeFranco. It takes just 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/DeFranco. Because nobody enjoys the stress of mounting debt or the weight of that constant pressure, especially during the holidays. It's time to take back control of your life and live for yourself, not your debt. But then, so what happens when a QAnon supporter gets into a position of power? Well, that is exactly what the town of Millersville, Tennessee is finding out after Sean Taylor became its assistant chief of police. Right? DNC pedophiles using pizza parlors for child exploitation. He believes it. A grand conspiracy linking former President Obama to Tennessee political figures, for sure, happened in his head. And when there is no evidence of anything bad going on, guess what? That is even worse.
Nothing that looks really suspicious. And when I don't have anything that looks suspicious, that makes me think something's up.
And notably, in the past, that's gotten him into trouble, with Taylor saying in one podcast, "Every time I will go to an agency and start digging, they will always, as soon as I start showing them everything, they will shut me down." With that apparently happening so much that even he knows that it's why he's a pariah in so many stations and he was forced to move between departments so much. It also goes beyond just believing in the general blueprint of Q's conspiracies, right? Things like the pedo ring at the pizza place, but Taylor has his own pet conspiracies. For example, he thinks there's a grand cabal involving Presidents George Bush and Clinton alongside Al Gore Gore, Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett. Though honestly, like every conspiracy has those names, so there's no points of originality there. But he does get some points for sprinkling in names like State Senator Jack Johnson and his wife, as well as Tennessee banker Jim Ayers. Not to mention a former director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, as well as the FBI, CIA, and the Tennessee Valley Authority. And one particular thing that he believes is that TennCare, which is their health insurance program for the poor, that was created by the Gores so that they could launder drug and child trafficking money. And I'll actually let him explain it more.
He was the reason he became that was the reason he became vice president.
Because he was trafficking drugs and kids back then? No kidding.
Because he was involved in it. His family was involved in it. They were steeped in it for generations. We actually have witnesses that his father, Albert Gore Sr., was laundering money through the sales of cattle. I mean, it goes back generations. And we had what was called TennCare here, which was like a state Medicaid program that they brought in to the state of Tennessee because it was actually written by Hillary Clinton when she was the first lady of Arkansas. It was adopted by the Gores here and implemented. And one of the reasons I believe that they implemented it was to help launder the funds and the proceeds from the smuggling.
Now, to be clear, none of that checks out, and none of the people that he mentioned were even involved in drafting or pushing TennCare, or that the program was used to launder money. Also, as a potentially important side note, there is a lot of talk about the company that Taylor keeps. That guy interviewing him, he thinks that the Nazis won World War II, and in exchange for giving up Germany, they fled to Mars, and they now live there with millions of Americans. Taylor also has some hot takes about school shootings like the Covenant shooting, saying that was allegedly a planned event meant to take the heat off Governor Bill Lee, or possibly distract from a criminal investigation into the office of the Nashville District Attorney. Also, with this, I gotta let you know, I'm not gonna go into every detail of Taylor's conspiracies because there's just so many and they will literally make you dumber. But a big thing is that if Taylor just kept his crazy ideas to himself and he didn't act on them, he'd just be another idiot. But the reality is that he has a badge and a gun and he has promised to use them, right? And in an interview that he gave shortly before taking his role at Millersville and while still between jobs, he claimed that the DOJ and others are covering up knowledge they have about drug smuggling and the trafficking of children. Them describing this knowledge as actionable and saying that it gives him the right and probable cause to act on that information, and quote,
"If I was still in law enforcement and I wasn't retired, I would be seeking search warrants. I would be seeking arrest warrants and or indictments, and we would be kicking these people's asses."
And so Taylor's rhetoric actually inspired an investigation into him by local news, such as News Channel 5, which has an amazing multi-part look into him. But also, even local officials have taken notice over time. Right, in late May of this year, 2 city commissioners wanted to know how Taylor got his job, and writing in a letter, specifically, we need to examine whether a thorough investigation into his moral character was conducted and whether he underwent and passed a psychological evaluation as mandated. And that possibility put them in his sights, with the conspiracy cop saying that the 2 commissioners are now under his investigation. And that's not just a veiled threat either. Taylor had arrested the former mayor because of some permitting issues related to his real estate development. But during interviews with far-right podcasters, he let suggestions that the entire thing is related to investigation of child sex trafficking just go by. Like when he was directly asked how they were linked, he just said, well, basically our department has started doing investigations into numerous things, and then gave some vague suggestions as to how they could be linked without any serious evidence. There's also no indication at all that the arrest for permit issues is in any way actually related to child sex trafficking. And this is he's doubled down on the vague ties. Like for example, during a podcast with QAnon supporter Scott McKay noted, typically when these people are trying to run interference on these kinds of trafficking operations, the natural inclination is to believe they are probably a pedophile themselves. And I'm not alleging anything, I'm just saying, why would somebody try to stop your kind of work? It's pretty suspicious to me. And Taylor agreed, saying it is suspicious. Now, obviously, if the former mayor did some sketchy things to get his buildings done, that's definitely one thing. But Taylor could seriously be putting people's lives at risk by even suggesting that they're trafficking children, which is exactly why city commissioners like David Gregory, who's one of the people in Taylor's crosshairs, want an outside authority to step in. However, Taylor seems to have allies in the local government. Remember how I said 2 commissioners wanted to review how the hell Taylor was even hired? Well, 1, they also wanted Taylor to apologize for saying the Covenant shooting was a government plot. But 2, neither got anywhere because 3 other commissioners blocked it. And the city's mayor similarly has ignored Taylor's craziness, telling local reporters that he hasn't seen any of the many clips of Taylor. And this is the city's chief of police also ignored questions about this, telling one reporter, the reason why I'm not going to say anything to you is I don't like you. With things then spiraling when the Millersville Police Department was involved in a child predator sting operation. With the TLDR there being they claimed to have posed as a 12-year-old girl online, and then some do fell for the bait. And as a part of that sting, they worked with the group Veterans for Child Rescue, which also do this sort of thing. But then the officers allegedly lied under oath when talking about the sting. Because under state law, it's illegal to solicit sex from a minor or a cop pretending to be a minor. With an important thing being it has to be a cop typing. So the officers there claim they did the actual typing while Veterans for Child Rescue just advised. But Kim Kelly, a member of that group, claims that's definitely not what happened because she she was the one doing the typing. And she actually recorded the planning and parts of the sting because colleagues told her that her posing as a minor might not legally work. And Taylor actually confirmed that, saying in a call, "So we just talked to our DA, and so with the Tennessee state law, it says that the officer has to do the actual typing, that with our law, it says it has to be a law enforcement officer posing as a minor." But then when they actually met to conduct the sting, Kelly claims that Taylor suddenly changed things, saying, "We were told that as long as we had one of the two detectives in the room with us as chatters, meaning people who were not law enforcement texting pervs, as long as we had one of these two detectives with us in the room, that was allowed." Now with this, Taylor wasn't generally involved in the rest of the investigation, it seems, and it was a different officer who allegedly lied under oath about coordinating the entire investigation. But you have people saying that it shows a pattern that the police department there is willing to bend the truth in order to hunt down this cabal of predators. And that's even if it means their methods might actually be counterproductive because none of the evidence could be used in court because it was illegally obtained. Where you end up in a situation where you have people obsessed with catching pedophiles, but they're giving them get out of jail free cards by the way they're doing. And this is also possibly where things started to unravel, because after it was revealed that the detective on the sting lied under oath, District Attorney General Robert Nash asked the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to look into the case. And shortly after looking into that, the TBI heavily expanded their investigation over concerns that the police department and officials used their tools to illegally obtain sensitive information about political enemies. And by mid-August, the Millersville Chief of Police announced that their access was heavily restricted. And we don't have a ton more information on exactly whose information they were grabbing, but this is the exact type of thing Taylor swore he would do, and things have just pointed back to him since then. Like in early September, the TBI raided the Millersville Police Department and the home of Sean Taylor. And at Taylor's home, agents were seen carrying out boxes and boxes of documents. Taylor even trying to accuse the TBI of pissing all over his home during the raid, although there they claimed that never happened, and instead it was Taylor's dog who peed in the bathtub, and an agent then took the dog for a walk so it could relieve itself better, which is also something that was seen by reporters who wondered why a dog was part of the raid, only for it to be clarified later that it wasn't the TBI's dog. Right, but all this mounting scrutiny on the actions of Taylor, it's just further evidence for him and his supporters that something's up, right? With members of the Veterans for Child Rescue saying, the locals there who have been victims of organized crime exposed to us that, yeah, Phil Williams is a cover-up man. Which is a quick aside, Williams is the reporter for News Channel 5 that's been doing almost all this investigating. But then going back to that veteran critic, they added, the TBI does have a percentage of their bureau that's corrupted. And Taylor himself claims that the TBI is interfering in his investigation of this vast, vague conspiracy that goes from Millersville all the way to China. And this is in QAnon podcasts. Since then, supporters of Taylor have said that they are going to beat the shit out of the attorney general, judge, and TBI agents who were involved in investigating Taylor. Although they clarified with a grin that they just meant the character of these people, which feels a lot like when someone tells you to kill yourself in Minecraft. But this is about where things are right now as things continue to develop. We currently don't know if charge is going to be brought or what's going to happen from here. But you do have people saying it feels like the circle for this QAnon cop and his allies in the small Tennessee town, it's getting smaller. Though on the other side, the smaller it gets, the more his supporters claim that it is proof that there is a cover-up. But then, taking a quick break from the news, if you've been on the fence about Beam Dream and you've been in need of a good deep night's sleep, now's the time to jump in. Because thanks to our sponsor, Beam, they're offering up to 50% off in their biggest sale of the year. I mean, it's a no-brainer. A good night's sleep regularly is essential to everything in your life. And Beam Dream's sleep supplement is made with high-quality sleep-promoting ingredients to help you unwind and get the rest that you deserve. I've personally been using it for years now, and I can tell you, my sleep has improved, and I wake up refreshed with no grogginess. Plus, with no added sugar and just 15 calories per serving, Beam Dream comes in delicious flavors like peanut butter, cinnamon cocoa, and seasonal flavors like pumpkin spice. I mean, just one scoop is clinically shown to help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up rejuvenated. And if hot drinks aren't your thing, just pour Dream over ice. It's delicious either way. And now is the time. You do not want to miss out on this great deal. So get early access to Beam's biggest sale of the year by going to shopbeam.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco or scan the QR code. You'll get up to 50% off. And then when you think about horrible news involving the WWE, you likely think of Vince McMahon. And I mean, he's currently being sued for sex trafficking and sexual abuse and being investigated by the DOJ. But today we got to talk about the news involving ringside announcer Melvin Phillips Jr., who actually died back in 2012. And that because from the 1970s through the early 1990s, he's alleged to have groomed, exploited, and sexually abused at least 5 and possibly more so-called ring boys who he would hire to help prepare for events. With him allegedly doing all this in what's been described as plain view of wrestlers and company executives at wrestling events, hotels, and other venues, often filming the abuse with a camera. And according to the alleged victims, he targeted kids from broken homes, some as young as 12 years old, and manipulated them with the promise of meeting famous wrestling stars. Now with this, some of the allegations we already knew from previous reporting and a federal investigation back in 1992. But what's new now is that 5 alleged victims are suing WWE, its parent holding company TKO Holdings, Vince McMahon, and his wife Linda. And with all that, accusing them of of knowing about the open, rampant sexual abuse, yet doing nothing to stop it. And in there, specifically claiming McMahon admitted as early as the 1980s that Phillips had a, quote, peculiar and unnatural interest in young boys. But then he didn't fire Phillips until after allegations went public in 1988, and even then, McMahon rehired him 6 weeks later on the condition that he, quote, steer away from kids, according to the lawsuit. So although Phillips himself is long dead, the situation and lawsuit is anything but. Then, in huge international news, we gotta talk about this crazy attack that happened in Turkey, because 2 people assaulted the headquarters of a state-run aerospace and defense company, killing 5 people and injuring 22 others. And as far as the specifics, reportedly the 2 of them, a man and a woman, arrived at the compound in a taxi, with the body of the driver later being found in the trunk, with them then detonating an explosive device next to the vehicle while the security team was carrying out a shift change, and taking advantage of the chaos to move in, with surveillance footage showing them entering the compound wearing backpacks and wielding assault rifles. But then, beyond that, what exactly happened inside isn't 100% clear, because Turkish authorities issued a temporary blackout on media coverage, and they also reportedly restricted access to social media sites like X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And this is, of course, they physically blocked off the area as well, sending in special forces, with Turkey's interior minister eventually announcing that the 2 attackers had been killed without elaborating on the circumstances. But notably, the mayor of the district where this attack took place initially told Turkish news media that hostages had been taken inside the complex, though the interior minister later said that was not correct, but again, providing no further details. And so far, right, as I'm filming this video, no one has claimed responsibility. The Turkish government, however, is calling it a terrorist attack and pointing the finger at the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK. Right? And that's this militant group that's been waging an insurgency against the Turkish state for decades now, saying that it seeks autonomy for the country's Kurdish minority, with Turkey and the United States considering the PKK a terrorist group. And over the years, tens of thousands of people have been killed in the fighting. Right? Just since 2015, for example, more than 7,000 people have died in clashes or terror attacks in Turkey and northern Iraq, with most of them actually being PKK militants. Though notably, things have actually been relatively calm for a while. In fact, according to one expert from the European Council on Foreign Relations, this recent attack was the first of its kind for a number of years. And notably, this took place as the Turkish government began, quote, exploring the idea of a peace process with the PKK. And so you had that expert saying, there will be a lot of theories and a lot of confusion until we know who actually planned this and carried it out. But this again, as the Turkish government has made up its mind, with the interior minister saying the way in which this action was carried out is very probably linked to the PKK. And now you have the country's defense minister saying its warplanes destroyed 32 PKK targets in Iraq and Syria last night. Though also, this is where it gets complicated, because notably there, they may have actually hit forces aligned with the US. You see, for a few years now, the US has been working with Kurdish militias in Syria to combat Islamic State extremists, right? And this has been a source of tension between the US and Turkey for a while now, which accuses the United States of supporting a terrorist group. For example, one group backed by the US is a rebel group known as the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, with the US distinguishing between the SDF and the PKK, but Turkey considers that group as part of the PKK. And so now, with this latest attack, you have the SDF's commander accusing Turkey of attacking, quote, indiscriminately and unjustifiably and hitting civilian targets, including health centers, with the SDF also saying in a separate statement that the airstrikes killed 12 civilians and hit bakeries, power stations, oil facilities, and security checkpoints. Now, the Turkish Defense Ministry, for its part, claimed that its forces took all necessary measures to avoid hitting civilian targets during the strikes. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to see where all this leads, 1, in terms of Turkish-Kurdish relations, and 2, if there's any spillover to relations with the United States. Then, let's talk about yesterday in a little commentary. Starting with one of the most popular comments, which was also a question, with Valeria writing, why did Phil's voice become so soothing when talking about private equity firms? It felt like a bedtime story for finance bros or for true crime fans. And ADHD Gone Wild saying Phil shifted into Bob Ross mode to talk about private equity, lol. And so on and so forth. Some liking it, some not. And actually, I'll tell you why it happened. It's not for most of the reasons that were expected. Some people said maybe I got high. Some saying maybe the kids were asleep upstairs and I was trying to be quiet. No, it's because you know how last week we tested a show where we put music underneath me talking? Well, before everyone almost universally told me they hated the music, I shot that private equity hospital story with the full intent of putting music underneath it and having kind of more of a, like a podcasty, not true crime, but, investigative sort of ding, ding, whatever the fuck that music is. Which, by the way, off the show, and you know this if you watched that podcast I did a while back, that's kind of closer to my actual everyday speaking voice. It's just that historically, for some reason, I think it might be muscle memory. I'm like a machine gun when that camera turns on for the PDS. So yeah, 1, now you know, and 2, to Headspace or NPR or anyone needing a soft-spoken person to speak, I'm available. But then, as far as comments about the stories that we covered, there was definitely a lot of talk about Rosanna Pansino and Mr. Beast. And Barnes writing, I watched Rosanna's full review video. She was totally fair. They went out and got a replacement pack to review and it didn't have mold. She even explained why the mold was probably there. There was missing glue on the seal area. She even said parts of the Lunchly tasted better than Lunchables. She also gave a full nutritional breakdown and explained it's basically a wash because some things are better with one and some are better with the other. She was extremely fair and even fully acknowledged her bias right up front, with N Barnes adding there, so Lunchly is just trying to distract from the product issue. Some of the top comments also included taking jabs at Lunchly and specifically Logan Paul. Logan on the wall writing, let out a chuckle at Logan realizing the embarrassment of Lunchly in real time. They didn't steal the Lunchly? No, Logan, not even felons want your dupe crap. We also saw a lot of people happy about American Airlines having to pay that massive fine. For example, Miriam sharing, as a wheelchair user, I'm so happy to hear you report on the lawsuit with American Airlines mistreatment of travelers with disabilities. And adding, heck yeah, we've been trying to tell y'all for a while. Then regarding Tim Walz's comments about Elon Musk, it pretty much everyone on Tim's side. And some commenting there things like, as a born and bred Minnesotan, I can tell you with certainty that Walz calling Musk a dipshit is not only one of the meanest things a Midwesterner will call you to your face, but it also means he's at the end of his rope. He's legit pissed, and this is him showing his frustration. It's adorable. But that, my friends, is the end of your Thursday evening, Friday morning of the news. I also just realized something. There are only 5 more shows till Election Day. And I gotta say, I'm glad. I'm, like many of you, stressed to all hell. And then soon after, we will know what the fuck is about to happen. What the fuck is about to happen? Hopefully you already played your part, or you will on Election Day. But yeah, for now we wait. And I'll just say, I love yo faces. I hope you have a good and safe weekend. And I'll see you right back here on Monday.